Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? Good to see you. Thursday. Guess that's Thor's day, isn't it? Something like that. I don't know. Possibly, maybe, could be. Well, thank you if you're here and listening to me. Appreciate it. Just maneuvering around. Who'd have ever thought? I often think about if you believe in the reincarnation theory, it implies that all of us have been here before, right? Someone, somehow. So that means there's always going to be a future me. By that, I mean, it's a ridiculous cycle, but at least in my opinion and others. But in any case, so I guess the expression would be you meet yourself coming and going, eh? Well, welcome everyone. Man, full crowd in here. How are you doing? Maria, good to see you. Lois, Warrior Queen will be on tomorrow. So y'all just get ready. Just dig a little deep. We'll put some food in that food pantry for Sherry. So good to see you. Favor to you, my dear. And let me just say favor to all of us, just invoking great favor upon us, full restoration in every way. Nothing missing, nothing broken be found in our lives. We'll confess that until we see the full manifestation of it. That's how it works. So good to see you, Rebecca, Kathleen, Rahim, good to see you as well. JH, hello. Abby, Lisa, Joe Sapien, getting him on here. I think we're going to get that worked out to next week. Hello, Franny, good to see you. Stardust Moon, peace, lost in space, greetings. Just looking at all the many names. So good to see you. Mario, good to see you. Frisk, Fisk, that's how I'm going to look at you there. Richard, good to see you. Well, thank you. You're at work. Well, may prosperity visit your company and may your profits exceed the expectations. Isn't that a hell of a way to greet someone? So, wow, dude, just vote prosperity on my company. That's how we do it. You know, if you can think a thing, then speak a thing. When you speak it, it becomes. So, yeah. Rennie, good to see you. Wow. Lisa, so many good people here. Skies above. Hello, Ruth. How are you? Hello, Patrick. Hillard, good to see everyone. Just kind of looking at the let me get this pulled up. Blah 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 blah. So I'm just reading my notes. Listen, you got to have notes. You know, it's the only way that that's how I've always been organized. So I wonder if that's the case. Have I always been an organized person? I don't know. Sometimes I think chaos in itself is an organized form of being organized. I mean, you look at everything that we're reading, chaos everywhere. And out of chaos, supposedly this is how we came about. I don't know. Got into a discussion yesterday afternoon. And, you know, there's a lot of people who are struggling. I don't mean financially anything. I mean struggling spiritually. They're confused. Oh, I love tea. Not my words, theirs. And it is. Listen, I remember so vividly that moment of, you know, that awakening, however you want to define it in one's life, but for me, the epiphany was definitely on steroids. And, when the core collapses, that's difficult. The older you get in life, the more difficult it becomes. And to have to rebuild that core, I think, is the greatest challenge of everything. Just me. So as we conclude with our study, by the way, tonight, if you're not doing anything, 10 p.m. Eastern over at artistfirst.com, do my weekly Thursday show, The Steiger Perspective. We're going to hit more on the deconstructing of the construct. I think this is what we're witnessing. Many of you are onto the same thing. So many different spokes on this wheel that we're all reaching kind of the same conclusion in a sundry of different ways. And I think that's how it is in the true reality. A lot of times it's difficult for people to conceive of themselves as a god. And understandably, I mean, when the only measurement you had was through a doctrine, when that gets tore down, it's like, well, so what is a god? Yeah, it can be difficult. I think in the book that we have come through, and we're going to conclude with this, because the rest of the book, the Liber, it just doesn't need to be out for public broadcast. I think that for myself, I found it a little repulsive, repugnant, just being honest. And but nevertheless, there is a reality that whoever wrote this, if it was Lamech, then that's a pretty bizarre world. There's so much that we do not know, I think, of the ethereal realm, the unseen realm. I think that we have been deliberately limited. And when we see the natural talents in certain souls, clairvoyance, healers, seers, we could just go through the list. The majority see them as the oddballs out there. And actually what they're not understanding is that that's our natural way with it, where I think we were supposed to be. I contend on my whiteboard right over there, still a question I ask everyone. Explain to me why in the 8,000 plus years of history of man and its many different genuses, whether it was Neanderthal, whether it was Cro-Magnon, whatever. The question I cannot get anyone to pay attention to, why no natural abilities in progression of telepathy? We could just move on to telekinesis, spontaneous combustion. I mean, we could get so deep into this where I think we should have been. I think our, if you want to call it, cranial capacity of holding what we call the brain, which I contend houses the soul, we should be far, far more advanced as a species. I think we should have been advanced far enough by now to where we don't even need books. We don't even need the written word. But we're not. In so many ways, we are regressing and regressing at an alarming rate. And so here we have this book, the Liber Lilith, a deity who's been much feared, demonized, and even by the book itself. You got to say one thing for the lady. She doesn't hide anything. She may be a succubus, she may be an incubus, she may be God. But here, it's not spoon-fed to us. It's not like a cow that's chewed its cud and regurgitated it, and now we're going to be able to spoon-feed it to the masses. Lilith doesn't do that. And I don't know for sure. I talked to my wife about this morning. Had the strangest experience last night. I sleep hot. I have a fan. A lot of times when it's 10 degrees outside at night, I have a fan on. I just sleep hot. Last night, I woke up twice freezing cold, and it wasn't a cold from the outside. It was a cold more from the inside, and it was very unusual for me because, my wife will tell you I'm an oven. And as I've read this book, you begin to put some things together. So who knows? Did I feel any fear? No, just cold. Cold, baby. But, I got great protection. So anyway, it's weird. I'm just telling you. So we got to the point where now we're going to conclude. And nearly, if you take out all the commentary and just get down into the raw study, nearly 7.5 hours. Who'd have thought? So I've learned a lot. The ET, we're going to get back to the final part of the alien interview. And the way that this has come about is very interesting because I think we're going to read as we get to the end now of the alien interview where we left off. This is going to make a lot of sense to a lot of people. And so, whether it was Ariel, whether it was the documents with the Vatican, apparently these beings, they do exist, ETs. They do not believe in this world's God. They don't know this world's God. They don't believe in the sense that we have been trained, forced, coerced, tricked, deceived, manipulated into believing in a construct of what we call God. And I find it interesting that if ET doesn't believe in this God, if this God then is not universal, I don't know about you, but I get this itch that we've been screwed, folks. And I know that this gets some people gets their panties in a wad. How dare you come back to say this about God? And someone wrote me this really interesting email. You blasphemer! You tell the world to reject God, all the gods. Who do you think you are? I wrote back, I'm God. And I didn't hear back, didn't expect to. But hey, as you think about it from a certain perspective, even if you look at the 10 words, which later has been distorted, and now through thousands of years of myths and etc., the supposed 10 Commandments. Well, if you believe in your sovereignty, your divinity, you're disqualified right from the very beginning. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. I'd have to say, well, I'm out of here. Y'all have your party there. I can't do this. Wow. What did Mr. Happy say, everyone? Did y'all see those in yesterday's comments? Go back and check out what Mr. Happy had to say. Such encouraging words. It's like this. I taught sales for many years. I'd have to tell that dude, man, you really don't get the concept of selling an idea, do you? I mean, you don't go out there to your potential audience and blast them out of the water. Why would they want to come to your God when you do that? If you're representative of your God and you're acting like this, saying wrath, judgment, death, I don't need that. Neither is the rest of us. Think about that. That's just nuts. So we come to the end of this. Now, the invocations we're not going to do. Just not cool. We don't need to. And I think that would be primarily because, well, somebody would inevitably try to do something stupid and end up with a whole bunch of trouble. So we're not going to do that. And finishing out the thought with ET. So we have to begin to understand if extraterrestrials, and if you believe in them or not, I happen to think that it's very narrow-minded that a species would think that they're the only one. Big universe out there. And so they don't believe in these gods. Don't believe in Yahweh. Don't believe in Jesus. Don't believe in Muhammad. Allah. All of them. They don't believe in. So where does that leave us? I don't know. When I got a lot of this, where we left off on the unholy reunion, you can see where all the myths and the stories have come from. I mean, this is obviously where we can see where vampires come from. We can see where the lore, the folklore, and the mythology, and the pantheons of various deities, and it becomes very familiar. I mean, whether you're studying, ancient Sumerian, Mesopotamian, Chaldean, Egyptian, Hebraic, Chinese, Indonesia, Mesoamerica, all these cultures, all these societies, there is familiarity in all of it. Very different. So we read on. For me, this has been a fascinating journey. I think that now that Lilith has been brought out in a manner that, well, we hope that at least her side of the story has been told. And like I said, not going to show you the sigils and the other components. Consider this like Mythbusters. We're going to show you the explosion, but we're not going to tell you how we did it. So here we've just simply shown you some of the components. So we know that all of the offspring of these unholy unions rise up to Lilith and she rears them as her own. We got into that, and many of you saw so many other similarities and so many other writings. This one here is just very interesting. They seek shelter beneath the broad skirt that are as broad as the heavens. Well, I think now we understand, because we'll go back to the beginning as we get to the end. Lilith told us where the boundaries of this force, its limit. It's not universal. They hang like a cluster of grapes ripe from her innumerable breast. By the way, if you study the names of the Hebraic God, 72, one of them is the El Shaddai. Now, the El Shaddai literally means the multi-breasted one. And I wanted to bring that out. I missed that last time. So I want to show you, here we have direct correlation on two words that you can clearly see where they came from. So is this the El Shaddai that we're talking about? I don't know. He says, their cries are as the waves of the sea. A mountain of dung arises from their droppings and breeds flies and pestilence. There's so much Eastern philosophy in this, folks. I mean, if anyone knows what the sheep gate is, you understand. All are naked and shivering. They seek and are not fulfilled. With blackened eyes and haggard cheeks, they lust after blood. Well, this is where we get our modern day zombies, vampires, the black-eyed children. Now you know how the black-eyed children, whose mother they are. They're Liliths. So now we get into the conclusion of ours, because we've gotten the general background now. And so now we get into the one-on-one, the sleeping lover. Now, as many of you who have the book, you know that as you get into the incantations and you start pushing together all the elements that you need to invoke Lilith, Namah, well, there's just a lot of people, oddly enough, that I guess they think it's cool having sex with these spiritual forces. Not me. It's like, no. But nevertheless, apparently through the journals of our existence, there have been those that have desired such. So to the man who lives alone in his bed, Lilith comes, or one of her daughters. So it clearly here, if you take this out and you do the equation, there's male and female spirits. There's no homogenizing, apparently, when you pass over. If you're a dude here, you're going to be a dude over there. You're a gal here, gal over there. And that's just, I mean, otherwise, how do you have daughters, sons of these spirits? To the solitary woman, Samuel, God, comes, or a son of Samuel. Very interesting on this one, because this one is the first time, again, that it brings out direct quotation that God has other sons. Cain, all of Cain's line is God's direct line. And that's what's polluted our bloodlines. All alike are children of Lilith and partake of her powers. Now that's another key word. Powers is that word we get dynamis, Greek, meaning dynamite, explosive. So with her powers, the question has to become, well, what are her powers? So often when people read, They just merely read and say, all right, well, I've read it, but they never did read it. So if you think about this, now we have how these spirits, these demons, demiurge, demigods, however you want to place them, there's a lot of them, a number that no man can number. Where have we heard that? And they're endowed with power, powers. Lilith visits both those who are awake and those who are asleep. When she comes to a sleeping man, oftentimes he wakes in her embrace and must submit. Again, so much for the free will. She can only be thrown off only with much difficulty. Here's where this mental training, we talked about this and we left off last time. This is the time, not when you get over on the other side. I mean, they're going to be playing dodgeball with your ass. And guess what? You're the only one in the center of the circle. You don't want that. She wrestles with him and takes her pleasure by force. That's rape. I mean, again, she's brutally honest. In fornication, she has strength of a warrior. He groans in her arms like a drawn bow and releases his seed. The thing that's here, it's really interesting, is that semen. I have a number of books on the magic using semen. But as we go here and we get concluded in here, there is an energy that we have lost the knowledge about. And this really brings it out to how this God, what she can do with it. I mean, I had never even thought, who does? Carries the DNA of the father, and we understand how procreation takes place within the egg, etc. But we missed apparently something very powerful. To her waking lover, she appears as a glowing mist upon the air. Its color is the light of the moon that shines through the water. Her image ripples like the surface of a pool stirred by a breeze. It fleets away when the eye seeks it and returns when the gaze is averted. Excuse me. Her features alter from moment to moment, even as the column of smoke is never the same, but forever renewed. The eye catches her countenance, and it's the sublime beauty of a young maid. Again, the eye catches her countenance, and it is the face of a harlot, lined with sin. Well, you go right here, and the question we all should be asking, well, what's sin? Its ambiguity is overwhelming in so many other even different beliefs. What is sin? Read the Gospel of Mary and Philip. You'll find out that the Christ said there is no sin. I continue to teach you all the time. The only sin that you commit is what you've done to yourself. The only one you're going to be held accountable to is yourself. Anyway, a moment more, and it becomes the face of a male youth. Then it is strange and wild, the countenance of a demon. So Lilith dances in her husk before her lover. Wow, that gives a whole new idea of spirits of the night, huh? Lilith approaches. These are the ways of her approach. She descends softly upon the crown of the head. Now, there is what we're going to be studying here. Man, put your ear catchers out there. If you really want to begin to have some insights into, are you ready for this? The body of spirit. Not the spirit of body, but the body of spirit. It's a different way of looking at things. So here is how this God comes to mortal men. She descends softly upon the crown of the head. Her lover feels as a cooling mist falling across his scalp and face. There is a tickling and a prickling where the ridges of the skull bone meet the crown. So, studying this out further, there appears to be, from everything I can gather, there seems to be an opening to the soul right up here. It's quite interesting because the debate is, well, how does the soul leave, and how does the soul enter in? We're going to find out there's apparently more than just one way. But this is one way that we now know that spirits can literally come in. They can actually come in through the mouth, the nose, but yeah. It's sometimes chances that the right side of the face cools, but the left side is unchanged. His eyes blink and water as though a fine dust is blown into them. A tickling comes at the top of the nose and on the lips. Yeah. So I'm thinking about what I experienced last night. Wasn't like that. It was that cold. It was very weird. Lilith's seductions. Now this gets interesting. Lilith at other times ascends up the leg from the tips of the large toes. It feels like a sharp thorn prickling the toes. So let's just stop here. So you get this immediately, this duality, this energy force literally entering in through an appendage of the body that I quite frankly never read about before. A spirit can actually enter in the body in a spiritual energy through the toes. Now everyone's going to go, oh crap, man, did you feel my toe like that? I can just see it now. You're sitting in a theater watching a movie and you all of a sudden you hear, Martha, God damn it, I'm telling you, there's this thing under my toe, All right. I digress. The cold mist flows up the legs and presses them down with a soft weight. Now, this is really revealing. This implies that spirit can alter physical matter in a ratio not studied. Does spirit have mass? Does spirit have substance? I question that when we all pass over to the other side, are you going to be able to smell, taste? How do you see? Do you have an active brain that, has connected to the retina? I mean, how does that work? But this one, here you have a spirit that is pressing down on a body. So let's just do some math here. We have inertia pushing down. So it's pushing down molecules. Is that like a force field? Because again, it's altering physical matter. That's when I do see spirits, I stop them and I ask them specifically, how are you manifesting? Phew, gone. Warmth leaves the skin of the feet. The muscles in the thighs twitch. Today, they would have a drug for this from the pharmaceutical industry. 250,000 satisfied. A fire that is like the lightning on the mountains that flashes from the tips of the toes up the inner sides of the thighs and makes the entire body of the lover vibrate. Interesting choice of words. Think about this. This is remarkable in what it's revealing about the human body and how spirit can subdue another spirit, so much so that the body becomes God's domain. Your spirit no longer has any control here. Your soul is out of control. We've read about the alien abductions, how they've all said that, I used to suffer for the longest time from night paralysis. Had visitors. I knew it. Hated it. I realized I had to begin to discipline my mind. But that it's a terrible feeling. No one can help you. And this clearly indicates that these bodies, given the right frequency, we no longer have any control of it. It's exactly what it says. The entire body of the lover vibrates. Think about this, folks. This is a change from your core frequency. These are powerful beings if they exist. And whatever limitations of their domain, we're clearly in it from what we have all read, not from this book, but also from many other books. Yeah. You stop and think about this one, it changes your perspective on everything. Her hair brushes along his skin as she extends herself over him, and he thinks it is a night breeze. Lilith's touch. Her touch is felt only on the right side of the body. Now, isn't this interesting? So, I talk with my wife on this because she's a nurse, been a nurse for nearly 40 years. I said, this is interesting because it's specific. Her touch is felt only on the right side of the body. Why? Why would that be the case? Now, if you're laying where you particularly like to sleep on your right side, you would think that you would have a pass. No, because Lilith passes through the straw and wood. So you can, understand how bedding was made back in the day. I saw this and I went and did a little searching to the Great Oracle. Folks, that phrase right there, straw and wool, goes back a long time. We're talking thousands of years. Well, anyway, she can pass through it with ease as a fish glides through the depths. Here again, we get insights into the spirit realm from a science point of view. This is technology beyond man's ability at current levels. Can spirit be transcended? Well, apparently, yes. It's quite amazing that you have the corporeal interacting with the incorporeal. I see this is, are we seeing something on a quantum level that is basically a opening? They're altering molecules. They're altering photons. They have the ability to manipulate matter into different forms. Now, even if this is strictly telepathy, the enormity of the mind, the discipline, to simply use this as though you and I just breathe air is remarkable. Now, apparently, we all transcend to this realm after this physical life. It begins to tell you how crowded it really is over there. Covering the bed are no barriers against her, nor will a locked door or shuttered window will bar her approach. That's why you would paint the blood of a lamb over the doorpost, the spirit of death. That's why you would hang garlic. That's why you would hang sigils to keep them out. Apparently, it doesn't do too much good. Some, yes. There are these laws that man is not privy to. Her finger reaches beneath the bone of the skull, get this, folks, to cool the brain and press against the beating heart inside the cage of the ribs and rest upon the liver at her pleasure. Now, this is like the Sherlock Holmes mystery. This one here is quite interesting. So again, we get this thing with the skull. And she's able to literally reach inside, from what it says here, and cool the brain. That's just got like, well, why? And press against the beating heart inside the cage of the ribs and rest upon the liver at her pleasure. What? Anyone have any ideas why the liver? This is interesting. Lilith's lovers. She takes pleasure in his amorous words and extracts heat from his lewd fantasies. Here's another clue. So, it seems that though you can have a material effect on matter, thought, particles, photons, and excite molecules, means it's a transference of heat. If the first and second law of thermodynamics applies, one would assume it would imply even into the next realm. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, but in a constant state of transforming, transcending. So she extracts the heat from his fantasies. Well, oddly enough, medically, if you have a blood pressure cup on you, and along with several other monitors, and you become sexually aroused, you're generating more heat, blood pressure is elevated, heart rate is increased, respirations become faster. Now, imagine having the ability to use that. Wow. He begs her. Now, this is where I swear they got the scene for the American Gods. Someone had to read this because now we can read this exactly, the scene. He begs her to release his seed and end his tormented desires. Here's where pleasure becomes pain. Torment. It's like someone tickling you. It could drive you insane. She taunts him with skillful caresses so that his lust does not fail, but neither is it fulfilled. Yeah. Who was it? Poseidon that's in between, can ever get the water? Wow. He is suspended on a bed of fire that inflames his sensations without let or pause until he is driven near madness. I mean, is this not torture? And by the way, that's some really kinky sex that's going on here. I mean, I read this the first time and I said, what the hell's going on here? I mean, what is this where, everyone got the idea for Penthouse Forum and et cetera? I mean, come on. I mean, there's some freaky stuff going on here to be getting this kind of reaction from the body. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I'm going to pass things. He is driven to release his seed. This is the silver lake of Lilith that she makes out of the secretions of the body fluids released by his yearning sexual lust. Wow. This, when you read this and just ponder this, I mean, folks, come on. This is the silver lake. Now, we all understand that metaphor of Lilith, that she makes out of the secretions of the body fluids released by his yearning sexual lust. These fluids are more copious, pure, cleaner than those released during normal intercourse. Again, what kind of sex are they having here? I've never had any of this kind of sex. I mean, just be candid with you. And now that there's apparently a chemical difference when the fluids are released, the semen. Apparently, even prior to that. For her and her daughters, Namal, they create life out of this. That's the freaky part. What kind of life are they creating from this? How Lilith speaks. Lilith seldom speaks to her waking lover when she visits his bed, but often holds conversations with him when she embraces him in his sleep. Again, this shows that the dream state is more than just dreaming. This is deep. Makes you wonder how many of us have been spoken to. The way of her speech is taunting and bold. Sometimes she reveals secrets to the one she favors. Interesting choice of words, huh? Hey, we didn't read this book until just a couple of months, less than a month ago or so. Favors. Here we see the power of favor, and the knowledge and the wisdom these beings possess is still not known by man. Could you imagine that if Lilith favors you, all she would have to tell you is one little secret? You'd become the richest person in the world. You'd probably become one of the most powerful people in the world. Her lover sees her shape clearly in all its bright colors, nor does it fade when the dreamer looks longing upon it. Again, so the manifestation of photons is taking place here. This being can actually shapeshift, change its shape at will, its appearance. Think about this again. This is a mastery of manipulating matter, molecules, photons. to me, it seems like that would take a hell of a lot of energy to be able to do this. A lot of energy. When she transforms her shape, it is done openly before his eyes. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, just again, from a scientific point of view, screw the spirituals part of it. Yeah, I get that. But I want to know how they're doing it. How do they convert energy? More importantly, where are they getting the energy from? Is it inherent in all of us? Do we really have that type of unlimited energy inside of us? Do we possess this, or is this a matter of manipulating an energy field by an individual or group of individuals? They've got to have a technology. I get it, you can think the thought. No, I dig that. But still, you got to just say, well, how are they doing this? She has intercourse with him, and he spills his seed upon the bed clothes, and pollutes his seed. Here's another thing. Now, of course, we're dealing with Eastern religious ideas here on masturbation, and because back in the day, masturbating was considered to be a sin. And today, it's implied in many religions. But you can see why it is. Now, the reason why it is was because back when these books were written, the population was not as abundant here. Your wealth was really determined by how many sons you had. If you had daughters, that was a liability. It's just the way it is. So this is why the Oman story in Genesis, he did not impregnate his brother's wife. Instead, he spilled his seed upon the ground. Yahweh was furious. Now you know where the story comes from. This is why men who seek the embrace of Lilith in their dreams wear a cloth about their loins when they lie down to sleep. So there are actually people out there that this is what they want to do. They want to have sex with a spirit. Carl Steiger, who sacrificed his essence of his life on Lilith's altar. I mean, this was his whole goal. Apparently, he had felt her embrace, and there wasn't anything that was more important to him than to be into Lilith's embrace and to have sex with a spirit. Now, how Lilith approaches women. Lilith comes to the dreaming woman in the guise of Samael, the slant serpent. So here we see the convoluted serpent and the slant serpent. The slant serpent, remember, is always God, the male aspect. The convoluted spirit is Lilith. Both of them are incomplete. He has no limbs, but her lover sees him to possess limbs, though through the glamour of his ornaments. This is an interesting term because we get two things, glamour and then the adornments that he was wearing. It's a lot of information that, quite frankly, we don't even have anymore. Now, get this. To the virgin maiden, he puts on the vessel. So again, manipulating matter, shape-shifting. Weird. Of a beautiful youth with golden curls and blue eyes that looked down upon her with love. Now, blonde hair, blue eyes. This is another clue. It's a big clue. It tells me a lot about a little bit more of what we're dealing with. Blonde hair, blue eyes. We'll be discussing more of this as we go forward. She is seduced by his wiles and does not resist. He enters into her body of spirit. Now, this is a term, look it up. Never saw it written like this. He enters into her body of spirit so that her hymen is not broken and violates her with his member. His member is longer than earthly man and hard as wood, but steeped in cold. Folks, we could literally spend several hours discussing this right here. He enters into her body of spirit so that her, look at it, his hymen, she's virgin. So the hymen is not going to be broken, but yet he still violates her sexually, molests her, rapes her. The seduction of Samuel. If she resists his caresses, they become harsh and demanding. The beauty of his face is twisted with the fires of his lust. He taunts her and reviles her scruples. Not that she can cast him away, but must submit to his desires. So she can't push him away. No way. He overwhelms her. Many times she welcomes his embrace as a new bride. You know, if many of you remember Dark Shadows, you know, Barnabas and Victoria, same thing. When he is sure of her willing surrender, he puts aside dissembling mask and appears to her in all of his arrogance and cruelty. I have no idea what type of cruelty this creature is capable of. We've seen, I guess, what you could call what Lilith does with men. So she becomes his slave and must give of herself, whether she wants to or not. She cannot resist. There's no free will in this baby. That just went right out the door. So potent is his love-making that few of his lovers are moved to defy him. Wow. Well, so there we go. What have we learned indeed? My. You have to admit, this has been a remarkable study. And again, we won't be showing the incantations and how to do the sigils and etc. That's for another time. But I have found it a most informative journey. We're going to be doing other studies here, but this one, I don't know, this one's going to kind of always, it seems like it's always going to be anchored. You know what I'm saying? Somewhere in the back of our minds. It's wild. But, you know, go back, look at the videos. They're going to be part of the book that I'm writing, because, you know, this information has got to be shared. People need to know that there is another story out there. We just use discretion. And so what an exciting time. Well, folks, I hope it's been fun. Tomorrow we'll have Warrior Queen. My spirit shotgun. There you go, Joe. Samuel looks like an aborted first trimester fetus. Yeah. You know, we're learning some things about this. Again, as we begin to get into some of the documents going forward on the ET side. I think we have to take in the fact that if ETs exist, and if there is, in fact, an exchange of information between sapiens and themselves, and they say that they don't know anything about this God, never heard of it. All right, you got busted, man. So the gig is up. We're going to go forward, folks. I think we can break this God spell. I think we can. I know it's insurmountable odds, but I think we can. It may take generations, but it may be our only hope. We've got to break something in here, because this cycle, it's getting weird out there. Tonight on the Steiger's perspective, we're going to deal with, again, deconstructing the construct. We got creation down. Now we just need to start breaking the construct down. And I think that's what's happening. A lot more freed minds. Listen, one free mind is equated to 1,000,000 enslaved minds. And so if one free mind can potentially awaken 1,000,000 sleeping minds, you can see what happens. It gets a little overwhelming for the opponent, that is. All right, so when are we going to finish the alien interview? Next week. We're going to pick up right with Ariel, and we purposely left off at chapter 7, and now we're going to finish it out. I think it's going to help perspective as to, was Ariel a deceiver? Is there a connection with them and deities like Lilith? Would these deities reach out to these other entities? Would these other entities be willing to entertain even communication with them? Yeah, lots of questions. We can't accept what they give us anymore. We've got to question everything. Someone wrote to me and said, why do you want to question everything? Because I'm tired of living in the lie. I tried to play it their way. I tried to play by the rule book. They cheat all the time. So, cause and effect. You know what? I'm going to be the causer and the effector. All right, folks, I appreciate you. Have yourself a good one. We'll see you tomorrow. If you want to tune in over at the Artist First Network again tonight, 10 p.m. in Eastern, artistfirst.com. And hey, enjoy the rest of the day. Be good to yourself. Love yourself. You know, you're beautiful. There's only one of you. And we are all happy that you're here. I'm happy that you're here. All right, folks, I appreciate you so much. Much favor to all of you. And I'm not going to cut myself off. I'm going to try to do this where I do the still face. All right, bye-bye.